Okay, so I have a confession to make. I didn't finish Phoenix Point, and because of that, this isn't going to be a review, it's more of a first impressions video, and a should you buy it as is type of recommendation. I would certainly be willing to play the game again when they fix the damn thing, but right now I straight up cannot endure it. Too broken, too glitchy, too unpolished, overall not fun. Phoenix Point is a game famous for, well, one thing really in particular: advertising a Steam copy during its crowdfunding phase to financial backers, and then getting scooped up by Epic Games with an exclusive deal. The claim was the Epic Exclusivity and surrounding deal will allow the development team to make a better game. It was too good to pass up, at least that's what they said. Now, pretending I believe this claim, which I don't, and taking them at face value here, assuming that it is true that the game is now vastly improved because Epic paid them a bunch of money for exclusivity, I want absolutely no part of what this game would have been, but I'll go in depth on that later on. Phoenix Point, on the most basic fundamental level, is a turn-based tactical strategy game much akin to the XCOM series. Based purely on genre, I had high hopes for this title. One of my favorite games of all time was Legend of the Dragoon on the original PlayStation. It was a turn-based fantasy combat game which, while quite different, made me fall in love with the approach and concept of turn-based combat. Another example is Darkest Dungeon. Again, a strategic turn-based adventure which redefined my expectations from modern video games. Not everything has to be a AAA realistic graphics sandbox open world. Phoenix Point seemed to be set up for success. Disregarding the Epic exclusivity, even though that's a really big deal for a lot of people, it was a game with what appeared to be interesting mechanics developed by the original creators of XCOM. What could go wrong? Well, a lot can go wrong, and a lot has gone wrong. Phoenix Point is a buggy mess. To start with, enemies can sometimes shoot through cover or glitch through walls. Here and there, such a small thing wouldn't really matter, and it's also pretty rare, but when that isn't happening, there are a multitude of other problems. I had two separate instances where the mission objective would state kill all enemies, but one of the enemies got stuck in an object, or just wasn't on the map. I would run around for like half an hour trying to find a way to get it out, or where another one might be hiding, with no results, finally extracting, and I would lose the mission. How about this one? There are frequent civilian protection scenarios, but sometimes you will spawn 2 or 3 turns away, which was still true even when I heavily spec'd into speed to gain larger turn movement sizes, and by the time you even get to the building where the bulk of civilians are located, they are all dead because 6 enemies spawned right on top of them. Not enough? How about this one? One time there was a prison rescue mission. I spawn in, I'm about 2 or 3 turns away from reaching the hostage in the central building. I take my turn, and a shotgunner jumps through the window, 2-taps the hostage, and I lose within like 45 seconds. Still want more? Well, the enemy composition appears to be random, so once in a while towards the midsection of the game, you will begin encountering mini-bosses that have a mind control ability. If they spawn anywhere near you, you just lose. They can mind control your entire team, it can happen through walls sometimes, and I may not be far enough yet to unlock certain tech upgrades that combat this, which may potentially exist, I'll give it that, though I have not seen them. However, even if it does, it is yet another instance where you just lose, with no strategy, tactical control, or enjoyment. The combat is also oddly paced. There were numerous times where during the enemy turn, it would just kind of freeze up for like 45 seconds. And I would assume this is when enemies outside your vision line are taking their turns, but it was way too long, and I legitimately kept wondering if it bugged out or if it was going to crash. Running parallel to this are animations like the jump pack, which can be really long, and I found it to be a super effective method of traversing the area, but when you spec multiple characters with jump packs and then use them freely, it can get really repetitive. The main innovation here over XCOM is a free aim system which allows more control over your character's attacks. This is honestly pretty cool, except sometimes it bugs out. I had one round where I would try to use it, but for some reason it got stuck on cover with the camera like 90% of the time, so I couldn't even really operate the thing. When it works, I actually really like it, despite it being pretty overpowered with snipers. It may sound on a surface level like a gimmick, but it puts a little more control back in the player's hands, eliminating some of the RNG and what would otherwise be a very bland attack system. So despite some minor flaws, it's appreciated and fairly well done. But, as with seemingly everything in this game, it falls apart when you combine it with the limb damage system. Half of the body damage points just don't do anything. If something is happening, I was unable to discern what, because when damaging a torso or a head, I genuinely saw no impactful result whatsoever, but when an arm is damaged, it makes it so you simply can't use two-handed weapons. This means you can either get lucky and a character takes loads of damage while still being combat effective, or gets hit like one time and is totally useless. It may be somewhat realistic during real world combat, one lucky shot can have a more devastating effect than 100 badly placed ones, yeah, sure, but it really messes with the pacing and enjoyability. On top of that, I spawned in one time and half my team was stuck behind a computer terminal, which they just couldn't climb over and also for some reason couldn't go around, so I had to restart the scenario. And all of that on top of freezes, which require a game restart, or worse, on multiple occasions, the game locked up my computer so hard I had to reboot the entire machine. Now, the crashing may have some sort of local issue exacerbating the problem. I'm hesitant to blame the game itself for the crash issues or the system lockups, and after a bit of research, not that many people have been reporting such a poor experience, but some are, and I really don't know what else to do in order to solve it. Drivers are downloaded, I uninstalled and reinstalled, I really tried my best. A lot of the balancing problems might conjure up images of the original XCOM for some people, which is true, honestly it is, and the defense of, well, it was true then, so it's not unexpected now, might be hurled at critics, but I have to ask the question, did they learn nothing? Who playtested this? With the 9 separate ways to just randomly lose a mission outright with no chance and no fun, who gave it the thumbs up? And I'll add to that, I played on normal. I typically play on harder difficulties, but it became abundantly clear that the game would be absolute torture on higher settings. Now for story and lore. The game's premise, voice acting, and cinematic artistry are fantastic. At least for me personally, they are. Some of the lore fragments, the faction descriptions, and the different enemy archetypes are extremely interesting. But sadly, the game is missing out on one of the most crucial pieces of that puzzle. You have no attachment to your team, like none. They are not even really introduced to you. There is no character building whatsoever. You just start with 2 soldiers, rescue a third, and then suddenly you have 2 more, and then recruit random ones from havens around the world if they happen to have a recruitment facility and have trained one for you to buy. The tutorial is like a mobile game. You know, the ones where it just has an arrow that says click this, now click this, now click this, and when you're done there are like 60 other things it didn't explain? Yeah, it's literally that. I was okay with it because personally I like the learning process and I also have enough experience with this kind of game to sort of guess the basic fundamentals as I go, but for anyone who has never played a game like this before, the tutorial will not prepare them for the full scope of managing a squad, and it could very well discourage them from playing further. It felt redundant to research most things. I could be wrong, but within the first few minutes you get access to what appear to be the best weapons and equipment options in the entire game. And I could be wrong, again, perhaps at much later stages you finally have meaningful research upgrades or base management options, and granted, I didn't unlock full affinity with all the factions, which grants access to their unique research trees, at least I think, but for the entirety of my experience it came down to just speccing into snipers, because sniper rifles were extremely strong, repeatedly setting them to Overwatch because it could be reduced by 1 action point, and also because that way I would have a decent pistol, which helped stop my soldiers from becoming totally useless if one of their arms got damaged. A rather interesting mechanic I have seen advertised is AI learning. The enemies will supposedly learn from your missions and adapt to what you like to do, and I can't personally vouch for this because I never saw a discernible change in their patterns, but if it is an actual system that is anything deeper than just a gimmick, it would be really, really cool. Here is where I have to branch away from the game itself and discuss community sentiment. I have a source within Epic who does customer support, and he requested to remain anonymous for obvious reasons, but also said that he has been processing mass amounts of refund requests for Phoenix Point, and that right now it's the most refunded game that he and his team have dealt with. I truly wanted to enjoy this game, and when the DLC drops and the bugs get patched out, it might be a deserving purchase. But right now it feels undercooked and unpolished, like a game that is entering open beta in 2009. It feels a decade too late, having innovated in some areas but failing to improve upon others in a way that is both confusing and concerning. A lot of what I played felt meaningless and overrun with the desperate hope that something outside my control didn't just flat out ruin my mission. I was praying that I spawned in with the ability to use all my soldiers, hoping that I didn't get screwed on turn 1 and have my objective get killed, or half my team get mind controlled right off the bat, hoping the enemies are accessible or even there, so I can actually complete the mission, and then desperately pleading with the cosmic universe to not have my computer lock up or the game hard crash before I was done, provided all other factors aligned. I didn't finish the game, and I don't plan to, at least not until there are some hotfixes and substantial patches made. I don't even want to know what this game was going to be without the super helpful Epic Games money, and that's if I even believe it did anything at all. I won't give it a numerical score, I guess, or say you shouldn't buy it outright, but my unfiltered advice is to just play XCOM 2 right now until they fix it. This game was not ready for its release. Overall, once fixed, it will probably be fairly good, but right now, just painful. If you want to support, there are links down below, merch, Patreon, Twitter, etc., but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.